The first sentence implies that James felt as though he had a lot of work to do. In saying that it wasn't his only job, it seems as though he felt as though he had a lot of work to do, and the length of this sentence emphasizes that as well.
In the sentence beginning with, I wasn't a total house Negro, McBride likes to input his personal, mostly positive views on the white folk at that time. He still proceeds to draw back to when there were slave times and explains the kind of work that he did, and he also explains that there were outside and inside Negroes, and James just happened to be one of the outsiders.
In the sentence beginning with the estate was, there is ascendenton, which emphasizes the size of the estate overall.
In the sentence, we cut grass, the use of ascendenton shows the amount of work James had to partake in while working on the estate to eventually pay off his trip.
In the sentence beginning with Harry was, James uses colloquial diction, which shows that he has a nice, easygoing relationship with Harry.
In the sentence, I liked Harry and kept him laughing all day, James shows a content, happier tone with him meeting new people and actually getting some work done. This also, again, displays a positive, happy relationship between him and Harry.
This beginning with he marveled at juxtaposes a lot of the memoir. This is because in this sentence, James is getting out of doing dirty work, whereas he's usually stuck doing it. When his stepfather died, he was the male leader of the house, and then he had to do a lot of the family work. In the first sentence of this section, Harry's colloquial diction with James shows their easygoing relationship even more. The sentence beginning with I had to get up at 5 a.m. is parallel to other aspects of James's life. He is normally mentally drained. Though it is never directly stated in the text, it can be inferred that James is very tired after he moves to Delaware and his stepfather dies. The sentence beginning with one hot afternoon is interesting, as the tone of the word hot matches both the temperature of the day and Mrs. Dawson's angry temper towards James that day. The first sentence of this section juxtaposes a lot of the memoir, as it is one of the few times when James doesn't have to work hard to get what he wants. When he wanted to see his friends, his parents would make sure his homework was done first, and his parents insisted on good grades. So James being given this luxury without having to work hard was a big deal for him. The sentence beginning with I did mind her is a big part of this novel, as in the beginning of the memoir, James is a child, so he begins as a boy, but then at this point he says that he doesn't want to be called a boy anymore. He wants to be called a man, so that is a big deal as it shows that he has come of age.
In the sentence, she had done me a favor, and those leading after, James explains he had another positive relationship he gained after working on the estate. Although he wasn't the best worker, Mrs. Dawson saw that he had potential and stuck with him throughout his adult life when it came to his education. All she wanted to do was help him thrive and live the best life he could possible. In the sentence where James wrote about Mrs. Dawson's husband who had passed away of cancer, he was most likely reminded of his own father who had died of it right before he was born. This most likely had struck James with an array of many emotions, and it really showed parallelism of his personal life to that of Mrs. Dawson's.
Dialogue beginning with forget these whiteys, it is evident that even though James has made a lot of friends throughout his life, he still has a burning desire to fit in. His tone in the words, yeah man, I hear you, show that he just wants to fit in because he never had a clear-cut group because he was of mixed race. The final sentence in this section sort of summarizes James's young life. He tried to escape his problems through moving and, unfortunately, through drugs. But he could never really find himself as he was always so busy trying to get from day to day. However, towards the end of the memoir, when James learns who his mother is, he finally learns who he himself is.
In the sentence starting with, by the time I began, we notice that although he has had a tough time while growing up because of the death of his stepfather, we finally see a change. He goes from a young boy out on the street corner getting high with a bunch of old men as a way of coping, to a man who finally wants to pursue a career and get his life back on track the way he sees it fit. When James tells us that he is afraid he might never get out of Delaware, he shows this anxious, gut-wrenching fear that he will never be able to get out and live his own life because his mother is trapped in hers. This shows James's need to go out into the world and do his own thing because if he stays, he'll never truly learn who he is. And how could he learn if he can't investigate for himself?
In the sentence, "It's like her legs were cut out from under her," the recurring theme of motion is exemplified. Ruth needed to be in constant motion in order to keep herself sane and be happy. For example, when she was a girl, she would run everywhere. When her husband died, she would ride her bicycle everywhere. And she moved to Delaware from New York because New York became too much. She also spent summers away from her immediate family, always needing to be moving. This shows parallelism to the rest of the memoir.
When James uses the word godforsaken, he displays a critical tone to show that he is not a fan of the situation he is about to describe, and it is extremely evident that he is disdainful about it. When the paper bag turkey incident occurred, it showed that Ruth could never truly catch a break in Delaware. Although this could have happened to anybody else, it had to happen to her, and it really created a bittersweet taste in her mouth and an agitated tone for her living experience overall.
In the sentence with the repeated use of the word darned, a panellapsis emphasizes the darnness, for lack of a better word, of the situation. The short sentences towards the end of this section convey a bored tone regarding Delaware overall.
When James talked about how the black folks and the white folks acted towards his mother, it really emphasized that Ruth never truly fit in because of her skin color and the way that she acted. As you go through the novel, James is always speaking of her as a black woman in a white woman's body, yet truly neither race spoke to her.
In regard to the contribution of this section to the memoir overall, this segment epitomizes the constant struggle that James and his family went through. They moved to Delaware with the hope of getting a better life, but they were faced with hardships. This foreshadows the end of the memoir, as this struggle makes the reader feel that there is a happy ending in sight.